My name is Colton Masters, and I am the Director of Environmental Health. And again, if you guys have questions, keep them in mind. Part of the reason I ask you to save them till the very end is because, yes, there's a lot of information in here, and a lot of your questions will get answered throughout the presentation. So this sort of saves everybody the time and lets us get through this in an efficient manner. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. The Operation and Maintenance Program. There we go. What is O&M? O&M, for the purposes of this presentation and for the purposes of this program, refers to the operation and maintenance. Operation and maintenance specifically of septic systems. That is what we're talking about today. So if you are on sanitary sewer, this program does not really apply to you. That being said, I do welcome anybody who is here who's on sanitary sewer, because again, you can help to spread our information and get the right information out there. And then if friends or family ask you about it, you at least have an idea of what it is they are talking about. The whole idea of this is to be as upfront and forthright with all of you as possible. There's a reason that we wanted to get all of you together in one room. We're not trying to keep this program a secret. We need everyone to understand what it is we're doing, why it is we're doing it, and how we came to all of these conclusions. So we're going to talk a lot about that, and I will explain every aspect of the program and how we came to those conclusions throughout the whole thing. All right, so let's start out with a little bit of why we have to have this program. We have to have this program because the Ohio Administrative Code 3701-29 was adopted by the legislature in 2015. This law gave health departments 10 years to adopt and implement an operation and maintenance program. Some counties already had an O&M program, but the legislature and ODH had decided they wanted every health department in the state to have that. So you can see the next line down there, the Board of Health shall develop a program for the administration of the O&M management of household sewage treatment systems. This says shall. That little word right there actually has a big meaning for us because it means we don't have another option. Every health department in the state has to roll this out. That being said, health departments across Northeast Ohio, most of them already have the program or are in the process of rolling it out. We know that because we've been in contact with a lot of those people. Okay, we wanted to know about their program. A little bit more about the law. No person shall operate a sewage treatment system without an approved and valid operational permit from the Board of Health. This is again under that section 29 of 3701. And the board shall specify any terms and conditions in the operational permit. What that means is that ODH says you have to have this program. This is something the legislature says every department has to have it, but they don't tell us specifics on it. They do not tell us that it has to go in place doing, you have to do this, these are the permits you have to issue, these are the levels you have to have, this is what you charge. They don't do any of that. So what we found is every health department has to come up with their own program. And because each health department serves their own community, which has their own sort of issues and things they need to address, no departments are essentially rolling this out the same way. What we have done is sort of taken all of that different information from these other departments and started our program here. We've tried to take the best parts of what they have and roll it into this program. In addition, they mentioned that, let's see here. Where'd we go? Sorry, this thing jumps around a little bit. In addition, ODH specified that they will not be funding this program. So they are telling us as the health department, you have to have this. You are responsible for enforcing environmental laws, and we have now made this an environmental law, but also we are not going to provide any kind of money or funding towards it, so figure it out. That's a lot of where we're going to start this kickoff at. That's kind of why we had to sit down and start these meetings. And again, these meetings have taken years to sort of get this program up to where it is. All right, so why implement such a program? Beyond the fact that it's mandated by law. Yes, it is mandated by law, but there are other aspects of the program. It is good for individuals. It does have benefits to the community. For the individuals, it will help your system last longer. as with anything else that you have, for the most part, the more you take care of it, the longer it's going to last. I say this because a lot of people, I get it, a lot of people in this audience right now are thinking, well, I have a septic system. I've always maintained it. My system's just fine. That's great. That's not the case for the majority of people around here. Not just around Mahoning County, but around Ohio. We need to make sure these systems are taken care of, because when they fail, it doesn't just affect the person who has that system. It affects the community. It can contaminate groundwater. It can contaminate surface water. Even if you're not on the lake, people think contamination of surface water. They think, well, I don't have a house on Lake Milton. My septic system's never going to cause problems for that, right? That's just not how it works. If your system is discharging raw sewage to the surface, rainwater can wash that into ditches, streams, and culverts, and that can work its way through and down into the streams and make its way to some of our bodies of surface water. Not just our surface water like lakes. Think of things like ponds, smaller lakes around the county, watersheds. All of these things are issues where raw sewage could affect them negatively. In addition, it could seep through the ground and start to destroy groundwater. That'll lead you guys to have to start having new wells drilled. You'll have to drill deeper wells. You'll have to drill them in new locations, because wells can become contaminated by raw sewage. That's not contaminated because your septic system failed and sprayed it down into the well. It's failing and getting contaminated because that bacteria seep through the ground and actually contaminate the groundwater at its source. That is the problem with this. Okay, so there are benefits. Again, increase the length of your system. And along that same lines, yes, take care of it, but also this gives people the opportunity to learn about their system. A lot of people in this room anyway would already know a little bit about their septic system. There are a lot of people out there who have no idea what a septic system is, how it works, what they have to do to take care of it. And because they don't know it, it's not that they want to neglect it on purpose. It's not that they don't want to take care of it. It's that they don't have any idea how to. Okay, so this program is essentially going to help with that. A part of this is owner education, and that's what we want to do. We want to educate the homeowners about what they need to do. If you don't know where your leach bed is and you start driving heavy equipment over it, or you decide to put a yard barn on top of it, you're going to have to replace a $20,000 or $30,000 septic system when that fails, because that is damaging major components of that system. We want to prevent that. And a lot of people, I put this in here because people all over the county have told me repeatedly, look, I take care of my septic system and you can't tell me that this happens all the time. How frequently do septic systems fail? I cannot tell you how many failed septic systems are in Mahoning County. Why can't I? Because we don't have data on it. How many people's septic system fails and then they tell on themselves? Some do, not many. In fact, this is a picture that I took just a few weeks ago, less than a mile from one of the major lakes here in Mahoning County. We weren't even here because of a complaint. No one complained about this property. We were actually here to talk to the person about another property that was nearby. And we saw this in the backyard. Well, if you can't tell what it is a large plastic tote flipped upside down with a corrugated pipe, one that you'd see on like an above ground pool, leading out from underneath it. That's leading all the way to the very back of the property, and it ends right at the neighbor's yard. This is what that is. That is a failed septic system where the person who owns it, rather than replace it and fix it, has dropped a sub pump down in there, and now they're pumping raw sewage from that septic tank to their neighbor's property at the back. And the neighbor had no idea this was even happening. This happens all the time. I can't stress that enough. I know everybody thinks it's rare, but it's really not. And that's what we were trying to help cut down on. Yes, this system needs fixed and replaced. Not every system we come across that starts to have these problems is going to require that. We're going to talk a lot about the different steps and things we're going to ask you guys to do along the way, and what's going to happen when we start to see something like this start to become an issue. Not when it gets to this point, when it got before this. Maybe something that would have fixed this problem before he had to start pumping his sewage into the neighbor's yard. So another, you'll see slides like this throughout the presentation. What I've done is tried to take some of the most common questions I've gotten from people, and I try to keep this PowerPoint up to date with them. So people call me and they say, hey, this is my question. And I say, you know what? I've heard that question so many times, it needs to go in the PowerPoint so that way I can go ahead and answer this ahead of time. I can get ahead of these questions and get as much out to you guys as possible. If this program has been in place since 2015, why are we just now getting to it? The answer is not that we said, well, we want to drag our feet on this, we want to hold back, we're just going to push it last minute. That's not it at all. It's actually that we wanted to hold back to let other departments and other counties figure it out. It may sound kind of selfish for this department, but we did want to figure out what worked for our citizens before we just implemented something blanketly and then find out this is not the best way to do it. So what we have done is actually learned lessons from other counties all over Northeast Ohio. I've been in contact with these counties and their directors for several months now, talking with them about what they did and what worked out best. What worked well for their citizens, what did not work well for their citizens. Were there things that they wish they had changed or done differently? Were there things that they could have altered or they could have changed ahead of time that would have made it easier for everybody in this room? An example of this, a prime example of this, is this meeting right here. Something that we got from one of the townships, or not one of the townships, one of the counties around Northeast Ohio was, hey, look, get everybody that you can into the room and talk with them. Get the right information out there, because they said we got the wrong information out, or the right information didn't get out there, and we were fighting with that for years because people were under the wrong impression about the program and the wrong things that we needed done for it. So this is actually an example of one of those lessons. Another example is, or another reason it was kind of pushed back, is it was deferred due to COVID, as was most things. This was supposed to start in effect in, they were supposed to start launching this and having these meetings and things in January of 2020, but due to COVID, it's best to go ahead and push this off for a little bit. Let's see where this is going to go. And at this point, we have to get this rolled out. It's going to roll out and start to affect more and more people this year. And we're going to talk about that rollout here in a few slides. So one important thing to note is O&M is not a new program. This is not something that, is brand new to us or to this county even. There are people who already participate in the operation and maintenance program here, and that is people who have a specific type of system known as an NPDES, off-lot discharging system. These off-lot discharging systems hold an EPA permit, and what they are systems that are designed to treat the effluent and then essentially sanitize it through either chemical means or through UV means before it is then dumped out of the system and into like a ditch or a creek. The idea behind these systems is that they treat the water, they treat the effluent, and by the time it's discharged, it is safe and clean. They've had to have this operational permit since their program, since they got their system installed, as long as it was installed, I believe it's after 2015, because this is a way of starting to implement this program, but also you have to hold a service contract with that. Why? Because you are actively discharging to a ditch or a stream. If a single component of that fails, that could mean you're spitting out raw sewage into a stream or the ditch. That is the opposite of what we're trying to accomplish. So a service contract is a contract that these people or these homeowners have had to have for quite some time. And what they do is the service company, a private company, comes out and then looks at the system and evaluates it once or twice a year. They look at all of the components to make sure they're functioning properly, and then they collect a sample and send it off for testing, so that way we can verify that the effluent that's coming out is in fact safe. There are aspects of this that are changing. Yes, these people already have their system. We're going to go forward. We're talking about levels of systems. They are a level 3 system. What is changing for these people is they're still going to have that same service contract. The difference is we are going to collect the sample ourselves. We're going to send a sanitarian out to collect it and have it tested in the lab. And this is actually going to end up saving the homeowners who owe this or who own these systems a little bit of money, because we are able to do this collection and sampling at a cheaper rate because we have the lab that's testing it. We're not sending it off to a foreign lab. We're not paying shipping costs on that. We go ahead and we take care of that in-house. But we'll talk a little bit about that going forward. Just keep in mind, these are your level 3 systems. They've always had an O&M permit. So according to the ORC and OAC, who must have be participating in this program? All household sewage treatment systems installed both before and after January of 2015. It is worth noting that this program does not apply to commercial wastewater systems. Those are actually regulated completely separately from your household sewage treatment system. They're regulated by the EPA more directly, and they have a different set of requirements and components to them. So let's look at essentially what is going on with this program. In our county specifically, we estimate that we have around 17,000 systems. That means that we have 17,000 systems, and not all of them need to be pulled into this program right now because, again, quite a few of them are already on this O&M program. They just need to be informed of the changes that are going to affect them. There is a year-long plan going through all of this to incorporate the O&M program. Not everybody's in the county, not all 17,000 systems are going to end up getting a letter at one time. We've divided this into fiscal quarters, and we've divided it up by townships. You guys here, this meeting was actually scheduled based on your rollout date. That's why you guys received the card you did. That's why we sent it out, so we could try to control the number of people coming into this room at a single time. We will go over those rollout dates here in just a little bit. Operational permits and requirements, we will talk quite a bit about that, and we're also going to talk about the fees related to it. So, household sewage treatment levels. I mentioned that we have levels. Level 3, down here at the bottom, you can see is it requires the most maintenance. That's that off-lot discharging permit that I just mentioned to you. Those systems that already have a service contract, they have a 1-year permit period, and the cost that they're going to have to pay to the health department is $125, okay, in order to have this fee, or in order to have this permit and to operate their system correctly. A level 1 system is your system that you think of as just a septic tank to a leach bed. These are your systems that are the most common in the county. Of these 17,000 systems that we have, I would estimate over 14,000 of them are these. Okay, they will fall into the level 1 systems. These level 1 systems, we're issuing a 3-year permit for it because there's not the same kind of maintenance associated with it. There are fewer mechanical components. There's less things that need to be checked and looked at on a regular basis. However, it does still require pumping and evaluation essentially once every 3 years. We will talk about that and those specific requirements and what we're expecting during that time. And the level 2 permit, the fee for that level 1 permit is $30 per year. But again, because it is a 3-year permit, it is a $90 total charge. So we'll walk through the payment and all of that aspect associated with it going forward as well. Level 2 systems are your catch-all systems. They are your mounds, your drip systems. They have an aeration component to it, but they don't hold that same off-lot NPDES permit. Okay, so they don't have to have that effluent tested the same way level 3 systems do because they operate a little differently. That being said, they still have a lot of mechanical components that need checked on a regular basis. If you have one of the either a level 2 or level 3 system and you get someone out there on a regular basis to take a look at it, if one of these small components starts to fail, you have a better chance of being able to make small incremental repairs to it and extend the life of that system. Versus if something goes wrong with this and you go, I'm not too worried about that right now, 6 months from that time frame, you could be looking at having to install a whole new system versus maybe it's just replacing a float in the tank or the aerator or the pump. Those are much cheaper than replacing the entire system, and that's what we're actually here to try to help you guys with, okay? Just because your system, something goes wrong with one of these systems does not instantly mean that you have to replace it. That's one of the rumors that we have is just because my system is old, I have to replace it. That's not true. We're not doing that at all. That's not fair to you guys as the community, and that wouldn't be, we don't have the manpower or staffing available to even think about trying to do that. In our view, if your system is working and it's functioning the way it is supposed to and not causing a public health nuisance, we don't need you to replace it, okay? So let's just get that rumor out of the way right there because that is one of the most common things we hear because there are health departments out there around the state that do that. We are not. Also, if one of those parts fail or something fails on that level 2 or level 3 system, it could just be a small repair that you have to do. That service contract that we're going to tell you that you have to have with it, that essentially is the company that will come out and take a look at it and try to make that repair for you, okay? So why do we need to charge a fee at all? This is another one of those frequently asked questions. It's because this program is, again, mandatory. The state and the legislature have made it clear we have to have this. The state will not be funding the program. They've also made that clear. We're not giving you money for it. Figure it out. And we have to have staff dedicated to this program. Yes, we have a lot of stuff going on here. You guys, we're going to ask you guys for pumping reports once every 3 years or service contract, but we also have to get things to you. We have to get information to you, education. We have to be available for your questions. We have to also get all of this stuff out to you and maintain this. So there is a fee associated with running this program. We cannot do all of that without additional money, and we don't put liens on the taxes, or we don't put levies on the ballot. We don't try to increase your taxes for this. This is the most fair possible way that we could find to do this. There are departments out there that do increase taxes on everyone to try to pay for this program. Frankly, that wouldn't be fair. If you owned if you were attached to sanitary sewer, it's not fair of us to ask you to essentially pay for people's septic system maintenance. This is why we've kind of taken a look at this, okay? So we've tried to keep this as fair as possible, and I'll even walk you guys through how we came up with those fees and those numbers. But there are also other costs associated with it. Mailing and general supplies, paper. We have to mail things. We're looking at possibly over $100,000 just in mailing information to people who own systems around the county. That's not a cost internally. That's what it will cost to actually get them out to you. We also have to be able to print them. We have to do all of that aspect for it. We have to have a system that can maintain and manage all of this. There are a lot of costs associated with it, and then we have to have that funding somehow. All right, so how did we establish these fees? We didn't just pull these numbers out of the air. What we did is we actually contacted a bunch of surrounding counties. You can see all the counties we were in touch with up here. What we did is pulled their fee numbers. We got a hold of them and said, how much do you charge for each level system you have? And as I mentioned before, not everyone rolls this program out the same, which means not everyone has the same levels that we do. That being said, we had to work diligently and essentially transition whatever their level was to wherever it would fall into our system. So a septic tank to leach field, maybe they call that a level 4 or something. Well, that's a level 1 for us, and we have to sort of sort it out that way. We compiled all of those fees, and in that first column up here, you can see we have the average for each one of those levels from the other departments. Those averages, we took those, this column here with $40 in it, that's essentially just a placeholder text. When we weren't sure what we were going to charge, we had to put something down, so we said, well, $40 sounds approximately fair, right? So we put a holder in there. Then you can see the difference over here, and these are what our final determinations were. So what we did is we took these averages and we said, okay, we need to be really close to that. We need to essentially see exactly what it is we need. So we're going to look, and we ran cost analysis to say, okay, if we charge $25, this is going to be the amount that we make. Is this enough to fund the program? And one important thing to note is this money doesn't go anywhere else. Okay, that's a big rumor that we have is, oh, the money's going to the health department to be used for whatever. That's not true. The law does not allow us to do that. The law is written to say that we have to use this money for O&M purchases or for O&M purposes. So this is going towards all of those aspects I've already talked to you guys about. Okay, so I just want to keep that understandable there. So it's not like we're trying to raise money for the food program or anything else. This has to go towards O&M. You can see the last column here, this level 3 system. That one is significantly larger than the other systems, but there's an idea or a reason behind that. This level 3 system, this one varied wildly between the different agencies, all the way from down at $40 a year, all the way up to $300 and some a year. The difference is that some departments do sampling and testing, others do not. If you do not do that sampling and testing, your fees are way lower. However, you still have to pay for that sampling and for all of that through your private contractors. That's still a requirement of the permit. We are rolling that fee and everything associated with it into that level system. That's why that level is so much higher than all the others. It's because that has to take care of the laboratory's cost in running those tests and samples. Those are the costs people are paying anyway. They're just paying the contractors right now. So that's the big change that they're going to have to be looking at. All right, I did just a general cost comparison here, mostly because I'm a very visual person. I like to see what it is that I'm kind of talking about or what someone else is talking about. So I did a cost comparison between someone who has a sanitary sewer tie-in and someone who has a septic system. I did this based on information I got from the sanitary agency and information that we got from the Ohio EPA. The EPA estimates that a household of 4 people will use approximately 10,000 gallons of water a month. The average sanitary rate in Mahoning County per 1,000 gallons is $12.30 plus a fixed monthly fee. The average monthly rate comes out to be about $134 a month, and the average yearly, or the yearly average at that rate would be $1,600 a year. And people say, well, you know, I have a septic system. I've already paid for it. I shouldn't have to mess with it. The thing is, when people have sanitary sewer, they've already paid to tie in as well. That's not a free process. It's not a cheap process. And we wanted to kind of compare these two and see what we're looking at here. So your level 1 systems, just to run this as an example. And again, this is only an example. Your level 1 systems, it is a 3-year permit at $30 per year, which means that that's all paid up front at $90. So you divide that out at $30 per year. And the pumping average, around $350 to pump it. Not every tank needs pumped in that 3-year period, but they have to be evaluated. So this number, we sort of looked at what pumpers charge and then took on the very high end of that. Okay, that way we could get the best number available for you. This worked out to be a monthly average rate of $12 and a yearly average of $150. And that's if your tank needs pumped in that 3-year time frame. If it just needs evaluated, your fees will likely be much lower than that. So just keep that in mind. And again, this is maintenance for the most part that you'll have to be doing anyway, or that you should be doing anyway. You should be getting your pump or your tank evaluated. You should be getting it pumped. And that's kind of what a lot of this is. So we're not looking at this down here, the sanitary rate. We're actually looking up here at the very top. Oh, nope. So question, what do you do with the money? This is something I just covered, but just to reiterate it, staffing, mailing fees, educational materials, and supplies. All of these are things that have to go into it, and that is what all of this is associated with. All right, so let's go into exactly what each system is. I briefly went over it, but a level 1 system is an on-lot non-mechanical treatment system. Again, this is your septic tank to your leach field. There are a few mechanical components, and there is a 3-year O&M permit. In that 3-year time frame, you have to have your pump either pumped, you have to have your tank either pumped or evaluated. Evaluated means you still have the contractor come out and take a look at it. They might pull the lid, they might measure the sludge in the bottom of it, but then they can tell you, you know what, your tank doesn't need pumped right now. They're going to write that on a form and they're going to give that to you, and you just give that to us, and that meets your requirement. Okay? If it does need pumped, they'll give you the pumping report, you'll give that to us. That meets your requirements. Okay? That is what we're looking at for these level 1 systems. Level 2 systems, again, pre-treatment to on-lot systems or your non-discharging systems, things like your mounds, your drifts, your spray irrigations, things like that. They have a 1-year permit because a service contract is required. That is separate, or that is different than the pumping report required for level 1. Again, a service contract is a private company. It's a contract with a private company to come out and actually look at your septic system each year and then evaluate it and make sure you don't need to make repairs, make sure everything's functioning correctly. No sampling is required in this system. That's why those fees get to be so much lower, is because we don't have to sample that system. This level also essentially acts as a catch-all system for us. There are a lot of different septic systems that are developed every year and tried to be implemented throughout Ohio. New and groundbreaking systems are great. We're okay with that most of the time, but they need to fall into a category. They're going to fall into level 2 until we find a system that we would show, or we would move into a different category. This is sort of our catch-all system. Of all 3 systems, level 2 are the least that we have in the county. Okay, we have about half as many of these, if not less, than we have of your level 3 systems. Okay, level 3 are your off-lot NPDES systems. They currently have the O&M permit and again require that yearly service contract, and they require that yearly sampling. That sampling is not just a requirement we put in place, that is an EPA requirement. When you apply to have that type of system put in, you don't just apply with us as the health department. You have to actually send something to the EPA who looks at your application and says, okay, but you agree to get this sampled yearly. Because again, there's a lot that goes into this and we really have to keep an eye on some of these kind of systems. So when we talk about rollout, when are things getting rolled out? When can people expect to see letters? When are things going to happen for us? We made this color-coded map here. Most people in this room right now fall into the yellow category. Your Berlin, Smith, Goshen, and Greene townships, those are going to roll out in July, which means that in July you can start to expect to receive stuff from us in the mail. And what you'll receive, we'll go over all of that, but essentially it is the application, but it's also information about your system and about what we need to make sure everybody's in compliance with it. If you do happen to live in one of these other counties, feel free to look at when your rollout time frame is. What we've done is divided the townships up and then broke them down and sent them out in fiscal quarters of the year. This was to try to make it as simple and cost effective as possible. If we started enrolling people in different months and different townships, we would have to actually hire additional staff to try to even keep all of that straight. This is the most straightforward and simplistic option we have. This is, again, one of those examples of a way that we sort of pulled the best practice from other surrounding health departments. There are health departments that roll it out in different ways, but of all of them, this is the most simplistic and easiest way to understand, and that's kind of our view on it. On this entire program is keep it as simple as we possibly can. There's no need to make it really complex if we don't have to. All right, so let's talk a little bit about your permitting period. So this is your rollout date. July. Let's talk about your permitting period. So the fee associated with whatever your level system is owed essentially in that month of your rollout period. We'll talk about the deadlines, we'll talk about all that stuff, and we'll talk about how to get a hold of us if there's an issue with that. But that is essentially when you'll start receiving our letters. A letter will go out to you near the beginning of that month, and it gives you it goes out 30 days prior to the actual due date for the funds and the fees. The permitting period begins at that time. When those fees are due on the 30th of that month or the 31st of that month, that is when the permitting period starts and begins for each of you. Each owner of the system has a time frame. Essentially, they have a specific time frame based on their system to get us information. The period between the fees and the information getting received is considered your permitting period. To put that in a visual response or a visual way here, I want you guys to look up at this. This is a new slide that actually just went in, so you guys are the first ones to get to see this, but this will be included on our online presentation. The permitting period, this is just an example, keep that in mind, but because you guys are the first ones to get to see it, I used your townships, that July rollout date as the example for it. So July 30th of 2022, that's this year, this July. We'll start sending out letters and things like that in the beginning of July. You'll have 30 days to respond to that or to get it to us, and we'll talk again a lot about that. But that is when, on July 30th, is when your permitting period begins. That doesn't mean that you have to instantly give us a pumping report in that 30 days. Okay, that's not what this means at all. That means that that fee is paid here, and your permit it runs all the way until July 30th of 2025 if you have a level 1 system. You have 3 years to get that pumping report to us. What you'll have to do is by the end of July of 2025, you have to get us that pumping report. My advice to everyone here is to get us that report or that service contract as soon as you get it. You can get it to us at any point in the middle of this. Anytime between July 30th, 2022 and 2025, you can get us that information. We upload it into our system and you're in compliance. That's it. Okay? That's the easiest way to go about it. Now, at that time, in July 30th of 2025, that is also, again, the due date where the next permitting period starts. So that's when the fee payment is due. Okay? I want this to be pretty clear and understandable for people, and I sort of ran it out a couple of years here. So that way everyone can kind of see what we're talking about. When I say permitting period, I mean the period between when the fee is paid and when essentially your following fee has to be paid. You have to get us that documentation to be considered in compliance at that time. So let's talk about your notification process then. So your letters will go out on or around the beginning of the month noted on that map. So for a lot of you, July. And the due date is 30 days after the date of mailing. That being said, if mail is returned or if residents have not met that due date, a certified letter gets sent out to you. All right, we want to make sure that you guys get this letter. We want to give you as much chance as possible. We don't want people to not comply. It's easiest for everybody and it's less work for everyone, and we can keep the fees lower as long as people comply. So that's why we want to make sure that we send you a certified letter regarding the renewal date. You're not getting a late fee at that point. Just because the date has already passed does not mean we have to issue a late fee right there. That being said, we do actually have to eventually issue a late fee. If you don't pay that within 30 days after the certified letter, that's when a late fee gets added to that. Okay? All right, the late fee is actually mandated by law, and if any fees that are not paid related to this program actually get added to the property taxes. That is, again, from the ORC. That's something the legislator made sure to put in there when they talked about this program. That is something specific to operation and maintenance programs. So they say fees have to be put onto the property taxes to get them back or to obtain that that money for that. All right, so if the required documentation is not received, a penalty inspection is initiated. So let's say, let's go back to this here. So let's say that at this time, July 30th, 2025, you still don't have your tank pumped or evaluated. We don't have that information from you. That initiates what we call a penalty inspection. The penalty inspection has its own associated fee with it because what we have to do is send a sanitarian out to the property to evaluate it. They're going to look around and make sure there's not obvious signs of failing of that septic system. Again, this fee gets assessed to the property taxes. Okay, that's what this is for. As long as you get us that information, as long as you get us that pumping report, that or that tank evaluation, as long as you get us that service contract, none of that goes into effect. Systems found to not be operating properly will be required to be repaired or replaced. That shouldn't be a surprise. That's an environmental law that actually has been in place for quite a while. Failed septic systems have to be fixed. It's a pretty simple explanation associated with this. So, failure to pay for the permit will issue the permit and apply the fee to the taxes. So just because you don't pay for that initial fee on the 30th, just because we put a late fee on it and we tap it onto the taxes, does not mean that it does anything with your permitting period. That permitting period still starts on the 30th of that month. It still begins then, and it still runs and ends at that same time frame. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Let's see, did we skip one? Okay, so what happens if I submit documentation but I do not pay my fee? Unpaid fees will go onto the property taxes, but no penalty inspection is initiated. All right, so again, if you do, think of this as having two different things that we need you guys to do. One is pay the fee, one is get the contract or the pumping report. If you don't do one or the other one is unaffected. It's still in place. It still has to happen. So unpaid fees go onto the property taxes, but we don't have to do a penalty inspection because you've got us the documentation. So that $180 penalty inspection doesn't have to take place. What if I submit, nope, I think I skipped over one. There we go. What if I pay the fee, but I don't submit the documentation? Again, one does not necessarily affect the other. You paid the fee, that's great. That's not going on to your taxes. There's no late fee associated with it, but you still get that penalty inspection, okay? Someone still has to go out there and evaluate it. I wanted to run a practical example for you guys so that way everyone had an idea of exactly what it is, a time frame, again, a visual layout of this. And for this example, I use Beaver Township, Beaver and Springfield Township. They are the townships in our area that have the largest number of septic systems, but I just decided to use them. Their rollout time is in October. And so on or around October 1st, a notice will be sent from our office and an FAQ and a fact sheet. This is information regarding your system, information about what we need from each person to come into compliance, things that we need for everybody to be safe and for your system to function properly. That hopefully will help answer a lot of questions that we have, not only for you that are here that maybe, you think, oh, did he say this? What was the reasoning behind this? Hopefully that'll help answer some of the common questions. Also, anybody who's not here, hopefully this will address the program so they know exactly what it is that they're getting in the mail and they understand it. So if the owner who lives in one of those townships does not pay and submit the documentation before October 31st, a certified letter is sent. The certified letter is sent to the homeowner, and then if the payment and documentation are not received, for this year's purposes, it's if the payment is not received, because documentation, remember, is not due until the end of that permitting period. So if the payment is not received by November 30th, a 25% late fee is added to the taxes. And if this is the following year or at the end of that pay period or the period that we had talked about, if the documentation we need has not been received, then it's going to initiate a penalty inspection by a sanitarian. All right, it is important for you guys to know there is a major change even if you have level 1 system or level 3 systems. Previously, what we've done is if your system gets pumped or serviced, the contractor sends us that report, or they're supposed to. For this program, we actually altered it and talked with the contractors, and they were a big favor of it as well, because it sort of gets us directly to you guys. It lets you guys get us that documentation, so that way you guys make sure we have it. Okay, that way you're not submitting and going, well, I had it pumped 2 years ago. I'm sure they gave it to the health department. I'd like it to come straight from you guys. Okay, if we receive it from both the contractor and each homeowner, that's fine. We're keeping these electronically. We'll have an electronic file of each system. But we need you as the homeowner to get us that pumping report or service contract. Again, get it to us as quickly as you can. As soon as you get it done, get us that report anytime in that permitting period. The idea is as soon as you get that to us, you don't have to worry about it for the rest of whatever that permitting period is, okay? You will be able to submit these to us. You can submit them online. We're going to have part of our website dedicated where you can upload this documentation online if you have that ability. You can also pay through that same system for these fees. That will be active and rolled out by the time it's time for you guys to start working on this. So if that's something you're able to do or you feel comfortable doing, great. You can also send it in through the mail, just like a lot of times people have for us, or you can drop it off at our main office. Also, you'll be able to pay doing either of those same things, sending in the check with it or coming by the office, check, cash, and we will start taking credit card as well. The idea for this is we wanted to find every possible way to make this as convenient and easy for the citizens around the county because, again, we're not trying to make this complicated. We need to make this as simple as possible. We have to roll this out. We have to get everybody's participation in it, which means that we have to have you guys participate in it. And the way to do that is to make it as easy and simple as possible. The more ways we can accept that documentation, the better off we are. Now, if you send it in through the mail, something important to know is to keep the original. Do not discard that original. You want to keep a hold of it for your own records. This should be a good practice for you guys even prior to this program, but this will help you in the event that down the line you go, no, 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 I gave this to the health department. Look, I can show you that I still have it. Great. We'll be happy to take a look at it because we want you guys to all be in compliance. We're not here to try to make this an issue for anybody. If there's a problem, if maybe you had your tank pumped, but you didn't get the receipt or you lost it or it was damaged, let us know. You can reach out to us, phone, email, you can come in and talk with us. Let us know that there was a problem and what that problem was. In addition, reach out to your contractor. They should be able to get that information back to you. Do not wait 2 or 3 years after you've had a tank pump to then reach out to your contractor and say, hey, you pumped my tank, I need that receipt. That's not a great practice to do. But if it's a few weeks after the fact and you go, hey, by the way, I tried to get this to the health department, it got damaged, it got water damaged, or my dog ate it, whatever the case is, reach out to them, get a new one from them, and get it straight to us. If you bring it in person, we're going to just scan it, put it into our system. We'll give you the original back. Again, keep that. You can scan it at home, send it through our electronic system. Then you want to keep it, okay? All right, so question. I think I have a different system type than what is listed on my letter. So when you get your letters in July, maybe I think I have a level 2 system, but my letter says I have a level 1 system. What is it that I'm supposed to do? Get a hold of us and let us know. Our system is not perfect. A lot of the systems out there in this county are considerably older, and that means that our data or information on them may not be all the way up to date. We're fine to look into it and try to get you as much information about your current system as we can. And again, it's not that we're going to make anybody update a system just because it's old. That is not what we are doing. We are just going to maintain the records for that system in our programs. But you have to reach out to us and let us know. If you don't let us know, then essentially we just continue and just assume you're on that same program because we haven't heard from you. Okay, so we'll be expecting different things based on a system type. And if you have a level 1 system, but we put you at a level 2, we're expecting a service contract or something at some point. You won't necessarily need that for a level 1 system. So that's why you guys need to reach out and stay in contact with us if that's an issue. Also, I transitioned from from a septic system to a sanitary sewer, but I still got a letter. What should I do? The answer to this is simple. Again, reach out to us. We are here to try to help you guys out. And if you think that you've received a letter by mistake, we want to know. We need to know because we have to update our system. You have to let us know as quick as possible. Again, as soon as you let us know, it sort of stops our involvement in this program. We don't have to go through all of these other steps if you're actually on sanitary. You could already be on sanitary and still have received one of our letters. You could have been on there for a while and we didn't have that entered in our system. That does happen. I know it's a surprise that we don't have everything perfect in our system, but we do try to continually keep it up to date, and we will look into it. If you say you're on sanitary, we'll get a hold of the right people we need to at the sanitary engineer's office, and we'll figure it out. And if you're on sanitary, there's no need for you to participate in the O&M program because you don't have a septic system to maintain. There's no point to that. All right, so just to go through these real quick, a permit to operate for level 1. This is your holding tank. Some of you may be aware or have seen these go in. This is just your general septic tank. It goes through a series of lines. After the sewage settles out, it goes through these lines and then gets seeped into the ground where it is treated naturally. The idea behind this is that a lot of the large waste and solids build up in this tank, and that is what we need you to have pumped and taken a look at, okay? If something's wrong with that, we need to catch that before it causes you major issues. Again, sorry, this is jumping around a lot. Okay, level 2 systems. Again, this is your catch-all program, and there are a lot of different system types in here. We're not going to go through each and every one, but I did want to show some just general pictures of what it is we're kind of looking at here. This is your typical pre-treatment to aeration system. We have your mound system right here, your drip systems, and your spray irrigation systems. You can see the spray nozzle right here, spraying these into the woods, into a tree line, into a wheat field. What these are is these are doing and treating the septage essentially the same way that a off-lot discharging NPDES system is, a level 3 system. The difference is this is now spraying it across an area up here, and they're actually regulated differently. Okay, so the EPA is not involved in their regulation like they are the level 3 systems. So that's very important. You can see your level 3 systems, they have a lot of the same components. When I talked about how similar they are, look at these two pictures, like this one up here in the far left corner, going over to this one here in the far left corner. They have a lot of the same components sometimes, but again, it depends on the system type you have, and that's why we have a catch-all system or a catch-all level. All right, so how do I find information about a septic servicing contractor or pumper? You can go onto our website and you can find a list of the household sewage treatment installers, the pumpers or service providers, registered haulers. You can find these lists on our website, and they stay up to date as much as possible. We try to keep this up to date. Anytime someone new registers with the county, we try to add them to this system or to this list. Now, it is important to note, you guys can choose anyone from those lists that you want to service your thing. We don't have specific limitations, like you have to go with this person or this person. It is a free market system. Choose who you feel you want to go with. Talk to your neighbors, talk to your friends, find a pumper that way or a hauler that way, just so long as they're registered with our county and they're allowed to be doing the work. And it's not just some guy who's pumping your tank out, taking it down the road and then dumping it somewhere. Okay, that's what we want to avoid. That actually does happen periodically in the state of Ohio, and that's what we want to avoid here. Something important to also note is when it comes to things like the what else we are doing with the fees, what we're doing to try to help you guys out as citizens, we are going to also be implementing what we will call spot checks on systems. What that means is a small portion of the septic systems in and around the county will be checked out randomly by our sanitarians at no cost to the homeowner. That's not an extra fee or anything. You've already paid the O&M fee. That's what we're doing. The idea behind that is that we can make sure you're getting the appropriate service that you're paying for. Not saying that private companies are not going to be doing what they want. We just have to do this to make sure that they're doing what they need to be doing for us and that they're not just checking boxes and charging you and not maintaining that system. This program is not about the money. It's about maintaining that septic system. It's about getting the most life out of that septic system. And again, if you maintain it, getting an extra 10 years out of a $20,000 system is a considerable investment for everyone. And that's a big part of what this program is. Now, this is kind of getting towards the end here. So if you guys do have questions, you'd like one of those sheets of paper so you can write it down. We need your information. If you have a question that you want to come up and ask, we do have to actually have you fill out that same sheet of paper. That's actually a legal requirement. And what we're going to have you do is raise your hand nice and high, and we're going to have some workers come around and actually give these papers out to you. And then you guys can fill them out. If you don't want to get up here and talk in front of people, give them to us, and we will make sure someone gives you a call back. Again, we got everybody's questions from yesterday answered today. Okay? Drew, are you walking around to get these to people? Perfect. All right, so as he's handing those out, I'm going to keep going here a little bit. So I talked a lot about how I want this to be as open and transparent as possible. I don't want this to seem like we're all about this and that we know everything, because that's just not always the case. What I want to do is be as honest with each and every one of you as possible, and we need to sort of develop that trust relationship. Part of that is me admitting to you exactly what we know are our challenges. Challenges are things about this program that we know are going to have to change or that we're going to have to work through as we get things going forward here. So the first challenge that we know we're going to have or we're going to encounter is possibly staffing. A good part of that is, do we have enough staff already? Are we able to make do with what we have? Are we going to have a lot of people who essentially are not following rules, so we got to hire more people to essentially do those penalty inspections? Something to note is if we do have to take that route, the more penalty inspections we have to do, the more the fee for penalty inspections is going to end up being. That's not because we want to raise up or jack up those rates for ourselves. It's because this is a state survey program, which means ODH comes in every 3 to 5 years and looks at every aspect of the program to make sure we're charging what we should be. Part of that is looking at the staff and the cost associated with the program. So we have to run what is called a cost methodology for it. That cost methodology takes into account the equipment that we've used, the number of man hours we've spent, the staff involved in it, and the more time that our staff have to stay involved in the program, the higher those fees have to essentially go. Now, that being said, if we have to specifically look at things like penalty inspections, that fee there can be targeted, and that one is the one that will end up going up. That way, hopefully, it's not affecting everybody else. But again, the easiest way to avoid that is to just stay in compliance. That way we don't have to worry too much about increasing those rates. But again, staffing changes. If we start to notice we don't have enough staff, I've got to hire more, because we have to be available for you guys to help answer these questions and do our job. Unknown and unclassified systems. I mentioned that there are about 17,000 septic systems in Mahoney County. Those are the septic systems we know of. There are a lot of systems out there that we have no idea they even exist. We come across them periodically already through nuisance investigations and through real estate program investigations. There are a lot of systems that we're going to come across or find out about during this. Those are systems that have predated any of our rules or any of our databases. They could have went in back in the 50s or 40s. They could have went in even in the 70s and 80s and just not been reported in our system because there weren't the same kind of guidelines or rules there are. Now, just because we didn't know about it doesn't mean that we have to instantly make them upgrade their system. If it's not failing, again, a non-failing system, we're not going to make them just upgrade it because it's just not, just because it's old or we didn't have a record of it. We'll go out though and we will pull them into this program. Make sure that they're taking care of it and make sure that it's not going to cause an issue for us in the future. I've talked to the counties around the Northeast Ohio, and something I've learned from all of them, there are counties that have had this program running for 10 years now, and they are still finding systems that they never knew about in their county. So this is not a quick fix solution. I'm not telling you that by this time next year, I'm going to know about every septic system in the state or every septic system in the county, because there's no possible way that I will. However, we're going to continue to pull systems in through those same means, through complaints, through other things. We're going to be able to sort of find and allocate these systems. When someone's system does fail and they call us to let us know that they're replacing it, and then we work with them through that replacing process, that is going to help pull them into this program as well. Along those same lines, one of the most common questions I get is time frame. What if my system fails? What's the time frame look like on it? How quick do I have to get it fixed or resolved? The answer to that is it's a case-by-case basis. We're here to work with you, and there are a lot of different circumstances that go into that. What kind of system is it? The availability of contractors. What's going to happen with this site? What's going on here? We're here to work with you guys. We're not here to try to say, well, you have 2 months to fix this. That's not our job, and that's not the way I want to approach that. That's not the right way to do this. So just keep that in mind. We also have to, but we do still have to address failing systems. So any system that's failing has to be addressed. That being said, we do apply for every year a grant from the EPA to try to help citizens of Mahoning County replace their septic systems, but that is based on financial need. The EPA gives that out to different counties. We're hopeful that we'll get it again this year, but if you meet certain financial qualifications, a portion of the septic system or the entire septic system can be paid for and picked up. In addition, the data collected from this program will essentially be used, and we will be able to provide that to the sanitary engineer's office. They don't have to go by the data we present them, but that is an extra layer that they can look at when they're looking at allocating funding. They want to look at where can they do the most good and allocate funding that if they get funding or if it becomes available from the government, they need to look at where they can run their sanitary sewer line. Information about where the most failing septic systems are can really help that out. Okay, so that's part of what we're going to do with this data as well. Continuing education and growth of the program. I'm not meaning growth of the program, meaning we're hiring a whole bunch more people and doing more and more that way. I mean growth of the program as in we're increasing our educational efforts for everybody here. We're doing as much as we possibly can to try to make you understand your system and know everything you can about it. That's right now, that's a challenge, but in 2 or 3 years, that could be one of our biggest assets, one of our best benefits. But we're always going to be looking at developing, changing, and improving this program. So we always need to be on alert for that. Okay, so again, we are here to answer your questions. This PowerPoint will be available on our website. A recorded version of the PowerPoint will also be available on the website. So will the FAQ sheets. Okay, so will what you're going to get in the mail. That's also going to be up on the website. It'll be on the website at mahoninghealth.org. At that same site where I said you could find those installers, contractors, and haulers, just go to our website, find the septic tab, and then it'll be right under there, okay? That should be relatively easy to see, but should you see that and still have questions, or should you not be able to access the internet and you have questions, feel free to reach out to us. Phone calls, emails, best way to reach us is probably email if you have the availability, but we are there for phone calls. The reason I try to steer people clear as much as I can from that is because I don't know how many people are going to call at one time, and I want to make sure we get an answer for you. So if our phone lines are completely filled and busy, you're going to get frustrated if you have to keep calling back repeatedly. nobody really wants to do that, and I understand that. Sending us an email is the easiest way to go ahead and reach out to us. And again, our email will be online as well under that same O&M tab.